Pack your things, Elena, the trash is being collected at 6. And it would be a shame if the neighbors mistook you for a discarded rug. The words weren't just cold. They were calculated. My husband of 7 years, Marcus, stood in the marble foyer of our sprawling estate. His tailored Italian suit sharp enough to cut glass. Beside him stood Chloe, my personal assistant. The woman I had mentored, and apparently, the woman who had been sharing my bed whenever I was away on business. Before we dive into how the man I built from nothing turned into the monster trying to destroy me, I have to ask, where are you all watching from today? I love seeing how far our stories travel. And if you're enjoying this journey into the depths of betrayal and power, it helps us keep these stories alive for you. 7 years ago, I didn't meet Marcus in a boardroom. I met him in a rainy park. He was a struggling developer with a brilliant mind, but zero capital. I was Elena, a quiet girl who liked coding and lived in oversized hoodies. What Marcus never knew, what no one knew, was that I was the sole heiress to the Thorne Vance legacy. My father, Silas Thorne, had built Aegis Global, a tech conglomerate that basically owned the digital infrastructure of the modern world. When he passed away, he left me 100% of the voting shares. A $90 billion empire. But I saw what wealth did to people. It turned friends into vultures. So, I placed my assets in a blind ghost trust managed by a firm in Zurich. I lived off a modest salary from a remote consulting job I made up for myself. I wanted to be loved for me. When I married Marcus, I used my consulting connections to secretly funnel contracts to his startup. I didn't just give him a seat at the table. I built the table, the room, and the entire building around him, all while letting him believe he was a self-made titan. Are you even listening? Marcus snapped, snapping his fingers in front of my face. The divorce papers are on the kitchen island. I've already had the locks scheduled to be changed this evening. You're lucky I'm letting you take your clothes. Chloe smirked, her hand sliding possessively into Marcus's arm. Don't be so hard on her, babe. Elena's always been a bit slow to process things. Maybe she can find a nice little apartment in the suburbs. Somewhere more her speed. I looked around the foyer. The $40 million mansion was technically owned by a holding company called Seraphim Holdings. Marcus believed it was his company's asset. In reality, Seraphim was a tertiary shell company owned by Aegis Global. I was standing in a house I owned, being kicked out by a man I had created. Marcus, I said, my voice barely a whisper. We built this life together. You said we were a team. We were a team when I needed a cheerleader. Marcus laughed. A hollow, cruel sound. But look at me now. I'm the CEO of the year. I'm rubbing shoulders with senators. You're a ghost. You sit in your home office all day looking at spreadsheets for a mid-level firm. You're an embarrassment to my image. He stepped closer, his shadow looming over me. I need a woman like Chloe. Someone who understands power. Someone who looks the part. You're just a habit I'm finally breaking. I felt a coldness settle in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't the sting of a broken heart. It was the clicking of a final gear into place. For years, I had suppressed my true identity to nurture his ego. I had played the quiet wife so he could feel like the king. But the king had forgotten who gave him the crown. The prenup, I said, tilting my head. It says if there's infidelity, you lose the firm. Marcus burst out laughing, and Chloe joined him. Elena, darling, Chloe purred. Marcus owns the firm. The lawyers who drafted that they work for him. The evidence of our affair, as you call it, it doesn't exist. Digital footprints can be erased, and staff can be incentivized to have short memories. Marcus leaned in, his voice a low hiss. I am Marcus Thorne. I am untouchable. You are nothing but a girl with a library card and a closet full of sweaters. Now, get out before I have security. Drag you to the curb. The first crack. I walked to the kitchen island. The divorce papers were thick. He was offering me a generous settlement of $500,000 to a normal person. It was a fortune. To the woman who signed off on billion-dollar acquisitions before breakfast, it was an insult. I didn't sign them. Instead, I picked up my phone. I'll be gone by tonight, I said, my voice steady. But Marcus, you should know something. Objects in the rearview mirror are often larger than they appear. Cryptic until the end, Marcus sighed, turning his back on me to pour a glass of scotch. Just be gone, Elena. I have a gala to attend tonight. Aegis Global is announcing their new CEO. And I've been tipped off that I'm the lead candidate for the partnership. My heart skipped. Aegis Global was announcing a new CEO. That was impossible. I was the one who decided that. Then I remembered Di had been out of the office for 3 weeks dealing with a flu, which I now realized was likely a slow-acting sedative. Chloe had been putting in my tea. While I was sleeping, someone was moving pieces on my board. The shadow board. I left the mansion with a single suitcase. I didn't take the car. Marcus bought me a mid-range SUV. He thought was practical for me. I walked to the end of the driveway, where a black sedan was waiting. The driver, a man named Elias, who had served my father for 30 years, stepped out and bowed his head. Miss Thorne, he said, his voice thick with repressed rage. We've been waiting for your call. How bad is it, Elias? I asked, sliding into the leather interior. Marcus has been liquidated. Several smaller subsidiaries to buy favor with the Aegis board of directors, Elias explained, handing me a tablet. He believes that by marrying Chloe, who happens to be the secret, illegitimate daughter of your father's old rival, Julian Vane, he can stage a hostile takeover of the voting bloc. I looked at the screen. They had forged my signature. They had used my illness to declare me mentally unfit to manage the trust. Marcus wasn't just trying to divorce me. He was trying to steal the entire empire. While I was recovering in a sanitarium he had already booked for me. The divorce was a distraction. He wanted me out of the house so he could have me picked up by medical professionals and tucked away forever. He's at the gala tonight? I asked. Yes, ma'am. At the Pier Hotel. He thinks he's being crowned. I looked at my reflection in the tablet screen. The quiet Elena was gone. The girl in the hoodie was dead. Elias, take me to the vault, I said. And call my stylist. I think it's time the world met the woman who actually owns the sky. The Pier Hotel was a sea of flashbulbs and champagne. Marcus stood at the center of the ballroom, his arm around Chloe, who was draped in diamonds that I had actually bought for myself years ago and kept in the house safe. He was holding court, telling everyone how his poor, sick wife was resting at home, and how he was ready to lead Aegis Global into a new era of aggressive expansion. To the future. Marcus toasted, raising his glass. To power, to vision, and to the strength to leave the past behind. Suddenly, the massive double doors at the back of the ballroom swung open. The music didn't stop, but the conversation did. A ripple of silence spread from the back of the room to the front. A woman walked in. She wore a gown of midnight blue silk that seemed to drink the light. Around her neck was the star of the Norther, 100-carat sapphire that hadn't been seen in public since Silas Thorne's funeral. Her hair was swept back, revealing a face that was cold, regal, and terrifyingly familiar. Marcus dropped his glass. The crystal shattered on the floor, red wine splashing his polished shoes like blood. He whispered, his face turning a ghostly shade of grey. I didn't stop until I was standing on the stage, right next to the microphone. I didn't look at him. I looked at the board of directors sitting in the front row. "Good evening," I said, my voice echoing with a power that shook the chandeliers. "My husband just told you a story about the future. But I think it's time we discussed the present." I turned to Marcus, a sharp, lethal smile playing on my lips. "Marcus, you told me this morning that I was an embarrassment to your image. You told me I was nothing." I leaned into the microphone, my eyes locking onto the hidden cameras broadcasting the event to every major financial news outlet in the world. "My name is Elena. I am the chairperson of Aegis Global. And as of 30 seconds ago, Marcus, you don't just lose your wife. You lose everything." But then, the doors burst open again. A team of federal agents marched into the room, led by a man holding a warrant. They didn't head for Marcus. They headed straight for me. "Elena, Tornivans." The lead agent shouted. "You're under arrest for the embezzlement of $4 billion and the wrongful death of Silas Thorne." Marcus's shock vanished, replaced by a slow, terrifyingly triumphant grin. He leaned in and whispered so only I could hear. "Did you really think I didn't know who you were, Elena? I've been waiting for you to reveal yourself. Now, thanks for the confession. And the company? What happens next? Does Marcus really have the upper hand? Or is this all part of a much larger, more dangerous game? To see the ultimate revenge and the truth behind the $90 billion empire." The room went cold. The flashbulbs that had been capturing my triumph now felt like strobe lights at a crime scene. Marcus leaned back, crossing his arms, that smug, serpent-like grin spreading across his face. Beside him, Chloe didn't look surprised, she looked bored. As if she'd seen this script 1,000 times. "Embezzlement, murder," I whispered, the weight of the accusation pressing against my chest. The lead agent stepped forward, his face like granite. "We have the Swiss wire transfers, Miss Thorne, signed in your name, and the medical reports from your father's final days. They were altered. We have the originals now." Marcus stepped toward the microphone, his voice dripping with mock grief. "I tried to help her, officers. I saw the mental decline. I saw the paranoia. I didn't want to believe my own wife was capable of such darkness. But the evidence, it speaks for itself." As the handcuffs clicked around my wrists, the cold metal biting into my skin, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I looked Marcus directly in the eyes. I saw the greed. I saw the triumph. But deep, deep down, I saw the one thing he had forgotten. He forgot that I didn't just build his company. I built his reality. The holding cell. 4 hours later, I sat in a dimly lit interrogation room. Across from me sat the lead agent, flipping through a folder of evidence. "You have a lot of enemies, Elena," he said. "But your husband? He's been a saint. He's been cooperating with us for months, providing us with every encrypted file we needed to track the $4 billion. You moved out of Egypt, Did he tell you where the money went? I asked, my voice calm. To a private account in the Cayman Islands. Under the name S. Thorne, nice touch. Using your dead father's name to hide your tracks. I leaned forward. The blue silk of my gown shimmering under the harsh fluorescent lights. Agent, tell me. Did you actually verify those servers? Or did you just take the decrypted files Marcus gave you? The agent paused. We verified the digital signatures. Then you should check them again, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. Because if you look at the metadata of those signatures, you'll find a hidden line of code. It's called a mirror protocol. I wrote it myself when I was 19. The mirror protocol. While Marcus was at the Pier Hotel, celebrating his victory, and preparing to sign the papers that would officially hand him control of Aegis Global, I was waiting. You see, Marcus thought he was the hunter. He thought Chloe was his secret weapon. But Chloe wasn't the daughter of Julian Vane. Chloe was a girl I had found in a foster home 10 years ago. I had paid for her education. I had placed her in Marcus's path. I had suggested she start an affair with him. I had written the script for my own betrayal. Why? Because a man like Marcus is only dangerous when he's cautious. I needed him to feel invincible. I needed him to feel so powerful that he would reach for the sun, so I could watch him burn. The door to the interrogation room opened. A young tech officer hurried in, his face pale. He whispered something into the lead agent's ear. The agent's eyes widened. He looked at the tablet in his hand, then back at me. The money, the agent stammered. It didn't go to the Caymans. No, I said, standing up, the handcuffs suddenly feeling like jewelry. It went into a trust fund for the 50,000 employees Marcus was planning to lay off next month. And as for my father's medical records, those weren't forged by me. They were forged by the man who wanted his inheritance early. I tapped the table. Check the medication logs again. Agent, check who bought the vitamins my father was taking in his final weeks. It wasn't me. It was a credit card registered to a shell company, owned by Marcus Thorne. Back at the Pier Hotel, the party was reaching its climax. Marcus stood on the stage, the pen in his hand, ready to sign the emergency transfer of power documents. With this signature, Marcus declared to the cheering crowd, "We move past the tragedy of the Thorne family and into a new era." He pressed the pen to the paper. But before the ink could dry, the giant LED screens, behind him the ones displaying the Aegis Global logo, flickered and died. A new image appeared. It was a video, high definition, crystal clear. It was Marcus and Chloe, 3 nights ago, in the library of our mansion. "Is the poison ready?" Marcus's voice boomed through the ballroom speakers. "The feds are ready to pounce on Elena, once she's in a cell. We trigger the final transfer. She die in prison, and we'll have the $90 billion. I never loved that mouse, Chloe. I only loved her vault." The ballroom went silent. The socialites, the senators, the titans of industry, everyone stared at the screen in horror. Marcus turned, his face contorting with rage. "Turn it off. Someone turn it off." But the video didn't stop. It transitioned to a live feed. It was a live feed of me, walking out of the police station, flanked by the very agents who had arrested me. "Hello, Marcus," my voice echoed through the hotel. "I hope the champagne was expensive. Because it's the last thing you'll ever be able to afford." The moral of the empire. The police didn't have to go far to find him. They were already at the hotel. Marcus was tackled to the ground on the very stage where he Thought he was being crowned. Chloe tried to run, but she was stopped by Elias at the door. I walked back into the ballroom an hour later. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. I wasn't the quiet wife anymore. I was the storm. I stood over Marcus as he was being led away in chains. He looked at me, his eyes full of a pathetic, desperate confusion. "How?" he wheezed. "How did you do it?" "You said I was a ghost, Marcus," I whispered, leaning down so only he could hear. "But ghosts have one advantage. We see everything. We hear everything. And we never ever leave the house until the job is done." I turned to the room, the $90 billion empire now firmly, legally, and publicly in my hands. "This isn't just about a company," I told the silent crowd. "It's about a lesson." People think power is loud. They think it's about who has the biggest house or the sharpest suit. But true power is silent. It's the hand that builds the world, while you're busy trying to rule it. Marcus spent the rest of his life in a maximum security prison, stripped of every cent and every ounce of dignity. Chloe, in exchange for a lighter sentence, gave up every secret Marcus had ever kept. As for me, I went back to my mansion. I sat in the library where I had been kicked out. Just 24 hours earlier. I poured a cup of tea, one I made myself, and looked out over the city. The world is full of people who will try to use your kindness as a map to your weaknesses. They will mistake your silence for absence. But remember this: a queen doesn't need to scream to be heard. She just needs to wait for the right moment to speak. If you enjoyed this story of justice and hidden power, what was your favorite part? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more stories about the strength of the quiet ones, make sure to stay tuned. Until next time, remember, silence is the loudest sound in the room.